Okay, so for those of you who are joining us, welcome to the Heninger Park Neighborhood Association virtual meeting. We'll be waiting for additional participants to join the meeting before we get started. And so thank you very much for signing on, and we will start our meeting shortly.
So Margarita, are you able to tell if it's a good time to start or not?
I think Margarita.
Yes, you can go ahead, Janelle. You can go ahead and open up the meeting.
Okay. This is Janelle Hardy, president of Heninger Park Neighborhood, and I'm going to start our September 16th, 2020 meeting, virtual meeting. Our agenda, we have 2 items on the agenda. One is we're going to have a review by planning staff members, Jill Arabe and Pedro Gomez, about replacement windows in Heninger Park Neighborhood. And that will be first. And then second, we're going to have a discussion about the general plan updates. And the general plan comments have been, the deadline has been extended to October 6th. So you may have questions after the presentation that you can submit. And that presentation will be done by Melanie McCain, planner Melanie McCain, and I think I'm forgetting something, somebody. Do you remember who else? Anyway, we can go into our first agenda item.
Thank you, Janelle. This is Scott Kuttner again with the City of Santa Ana. And I just wanted to remind participants that there are a couple different ways to ask questions tonight during the meeting. And so your questions and your comments are really important as we discuss these topics. And we want to make sure that you're able to get those questions answered and have a contact person moving forward to the extent that you have continued need for assistance. And so on the screen, you should see that there are a couple of ways to participate in our meeting tonight. There is a function in Zoom that allows you to raise your hand, and the organizer of the meeting will be able to see that and call on you. There's also a comment section that you can also use in order to indicate that you have a question that you'd like to ask. For those who are dialing in and you would like to speak, you need to dial *9 to virtually raise your hand. And then you must press *6 in order to speak, to unmute yourself. And there's also a chat feature as part of this platform. So if at any point your audio isn't working, you can always use that chat feature and we'll be able to pick up your comments and respond to you. I'm gonna pass it back to Janelle. I just wanted to remind participants though, that this meeting is being recorded, and so residents in the Heninger Park neighborhood will be able to get access to this information after tonight. So regardless of how many participants are online tonight, we'll be able to forward the link to this recording so that residents of Heninger Park will be informed about the topics that we've touched upon tonight moving forward. And so with that, I'm gonna pass it back over to Janelle.
Thank you, Scott. All right, we can go into our first agenda item about window replacement in Heninger Park neighborhood. And let me introduce planner Pedro Gomez and planner Jill Arabe, and they have a little presentation for us.
Thank you, Janelle. I will start sharing my screen. So please give me one moment.
I see you.
Okay, so let me open this up. Is everything visible? Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, Jill, we can hear you fine and we can see your presentation, Window Replacement and Modification Guidelines for Heninger Park Neighborhood Meeting.
Great. So good evening, everyone. My name is Jill Arabi, and presenting with me is Pedro Gomez. We are planners for the City of Santa Ana, and we're here today to discuss window replacement and modification guidelines. We are representatives of the Historic Preservation section of the Planning Division. To begin, we wanted to provide a quick overview of the zoning and applicable guidelines for Heninger Park. The zoning for Heninger Park is SD 40, that's Specific Development 40, and it's generally bounded by Flower Street to the west, McFadden Avenue to the south, Sycamore to the east, and First Street to the north. SD 40 is a separate document that establishes standards for design review and development. Originally approved in 1986 and modified in 2006, Heninger Park zoning ordinance requires all exterior work to conform to Heninger Park architectural design guidelines, which were adopted in 2006. So the cover of those guidelines you can see on the right here at the slide. And it is also available at the link below, which we will inevitably send these slides to you so you can have access to that. The design guidelines apply to all properties within Heninger Park that have been determined to be eligible or are listed on the City of Santa Ana Register of Historical Properties. These properties are listed in Appendix A of these design guidelines. The remaining properties within Heninger Park that are not listed in Appendix A are subject to the City of Santa Ana Citywide design guidelines. You can find the Heninger Park design guidelines by also visiting, as I said, the link below on the slide, and just doing a Google search of Santa Ana Historic Preservation, which you'll see this link, and it'll take you to this page. And clicking the Heninger Park Design Guidelines link outlined in red below. As mentioned, the Heninger Park properties that have been determined to be eligible for listing or are listed on the City of Santa Ana Register of Historical Properties are in Appendix A of those guidelines. You can find out whether your property is on the City of Santa Ana Register of Historical Properties by visiting our Historic Preservation website, again, seen here on the left. And the link is also identified down below on this slide. As outlined in dashed red towards the bottom left of the slide, you can click on that link for the list of all historic properties in the city, which we have over 690, and the link for a static map, which is shown on the right, identifying properties citywide that are historic. It is our plan for the near future that this map will become more dynamic and interactive and provide more detailed information about individually listed historic resources. There are 2 neighborhoods in the City of Santa Ana that have a requirement called the neighborhood review process. These neighborhoods are French Park and Heninger Park. Now, while there is no fee application that ensures compliance with appropriate design guidelines and city codes, we do have an application called Neighborhood Review that contains a submittal checklist, an application for the data that needs to be completed, and a description that needs to be filled out by the applicant. All exterior improvements, including window changeouts within the boundaries of Heninger Park, are required to be reviewed by city planning staff for zoning and development standards and the Neighborhood Architectural Review Committee. Window changeouts fall under, as seen in this diagram, minor improvement projects, which include rehabilitation or repair of architectural features, such as siding, window, porch, etc., that are like to like. These minor improvements are reviewed by planning staff and submitted for review by the Heninger Park Neighborhood Architectural Review Committee. The timeframe for completion of the initial neighborhood review is 30 days. Upon completion of the review, the Planning Division will forward comments from planning staff and the Neighborhood Architectural Review Committee to the applicant. These comments may require revisions to the proposed project plans. And once approved, the applicant may then obtain the necessary building permits. So submittal for a neighborhood review and the planning and building review require the following. 3 sets of fully dimensioned plans, site plans, floor plans, elevations. Typically a site plan as seen in the center of your screen show your general property lines, the building, setbacks from the building to the property lines, and particularly identifying all the windows existing and proposed on the single family residence. The plans should also include elevation, which is an example on the right that shows the window size, the location, how high it is from the ground, and so forth. So the site plan is actually a dual plan that shows both a floor plan that indicates all the different types of rooms that those windows serve. In addition to the site plan, floor plan, and elevations, we also ask that a window schedule be provided that details the different windows, and then a legend detailing the information that we should know about the property, square footage of the lot, the square footage of the building, and so forth. Now for window replacement, the submittal requirements are typically provided through this or identified through this handout we give to anyone that comes to the city, or it's also available online, which include the requirement for the submittal of photographs, a photograph from the street showing the existing residence, as well as photographs of the areas that are proposed for change. So if you're changing out windows on the back of your house, we'd like to see photos of that particular location. This takes us to about halfway through our presentation. So I would like to remind everyone that if you do have questions, please hold or write them down and hold and save them till the end of the presentation. And I will hand off my presentation off to Pedro to start the next slide.
Thank you, Jill. Hello, everyone. My name is Pedro, and I'm an associate planner with the City of Santa Ana. I've been working with the city since 2017. I'll be discussing the aspects of window changeouts that have more to do with the individual building's architectural style. I'll be letting you know what the city staff looks for to ensure that window changeouts are consistent and appropriate for the style of a particular house. Yeah, if you can stay on that slide, thank you. Like many neighborhoods in Santa Ana, Heninger Park has a variety of different architectural styles, some of which were popular in Santa Ana and Southern California through 1900 through 1940. Heninger Park is primarily significant for its wide range of craftsman and California bungalow style homes, but you can also find homes designed in the colonial revival style, the prairie school style, the Spanish colonial revival and Spanish eclectic revival style, and both the English and French Tudor style. The slide in front of you provides you with some imagery of just some of those particular styles. We won't have time to go over every specific style's character defining features or their period of significance, but you can find more information and get more images and examples of the different styles in Heninger Park's architectural guidelines or the citywide design guidelines. Next slide, please. So knowing the architectural style of your home and when you're considering changing out your windows is important because windows are essential components of the character of a historic building and of neighborhoods with historic significance. The Heninger Park guidelines are aimed at maintaining and protecting the original architectural features of a structure, of a home, that will help identify its individual style and thereby continue to contribute to the overall character of the neighborhood. The placement, grouping, the size of historic openings on each elevation are important parts of each building's architectural style, and the construction and materials of each window are also integral to the building's character. and replacement of original windows with inappropriate materials can significantly alter the historic appearance of a structure and to the community. The most common window styles in Heninger
I'm
Park.
sorry, Pedro, I'm sorry, this is Scott. I just wanted to just remind you, and I apologize for interrupting you, but just to speak a little bit more slowly because Margarita is providing the interpreting and on the Spanish line, and so we're doing that simultaneously. So I apologize for interrupting you, but back over to you, Pedro.
Not a problem. Thank you, Scott. So the most common window style in Heninger Park is called wood single or wood double hung with wood sash or wood trim. Other common window configurations include what's called hopper, plate glass windows with single or double hung or casement windows, or groupings of 3 or more casement or single double hung windows. Windows often have wood muttons or what some folks see as like the dividing lights between the windows with multiple glass lights. So on some of the images, you'll see examples of windows. So you'll see, for example, on the slide, you have a single hung or double hung window with 6 glass lights over 6. So that's the example at the bottom left. The slide also provides you with some other examples of the types of windows I just discussed. And it provides you a typical window detail showing you the different elements of a window, including the header, the sash, the mullions, the window trim, and the window sill. You can go to slide 8. Because windows are so critical to the character of a historic building, they generally should not be replaced. Replacement is only appropriate where the windows are too deteriorated to be repaired. To maintain the character of the historic building, the replacement must exactly match the original in dimensions, materials, and details, which often require custom windows. So maintaining historic windows is often the most cost-effective method to preserving the character of the house or the home. It also helps improving energy efficiency too. The windows in your particular home or in the particular neighborhood may be more than 100 years old, and with regular maintenance can outlast modern replacements such as vinyl or other kind of newer windows. So this slide provides you with an overview of staff recommendations when it comes to window changeouts. As mentioned, we recommend repairing versus replacing the windows, identifying and preserving original windows and their functions of decorative features, repairing individual window frames or sashes, and if new windows are proposed, the new windows should match the original as closely as possible, while maintaining the window opening and size. And then lastly, window trims, if replaced, should match as closely as possible to the original if deteriorated or missing. Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier by Jill, the architectural guidelines will not apply to all of the properties within Heninger Park guidelines. For those not located on Appendix A or the city's local historic register, the citywide design guidelines would apply. The citywide guidelines are consistent with the Heninger Park guidelines in that they recommend and prioritize the preservations of defining visual character defining features. And in this case, windows of historic homes or of the neighborhood in Heninger Park are considered defining visual character defining features. The design objectives in the citywide design guidelines do allow for new windows to be different materials, but they must resemble the original design. In addition, the windows should complement the architectural style and architectural elements of the house. They should avoid details that are not consistent. The window sizes should be proportional to the wall size and to the architectural style. And the existing window pane pattern, rhythm, style, and proportion should be maintained. Thank you, Jeff. I forgot to have you skip ahead. You can go to the next slide. So this last slide provides you with an overview of what is not recommended when it comes to window changeouts, or what's discouraged. And this is what staff looks for when we do receive our applications for neighborhood reviews. And this is what the Architectural Review Committee also looks for and recommends against. So we do not recommend the removal of original windows, features or trims in part or whole. We do not recommend replacing windows and openings that are smaller or larger or a different shape than the original. We don't recommend removing window muntins or changing the spacing or grouping of the original windows. We don't recommend stick-on window muntins or dividers. We don't recommend faux window lights. We don't recommend installation of window openings that are visible from the public right-of-way that incorporate AC units or any sort of fans or vents. And we certainly don't recommend security bars on windows that are seen from the public street. And with that, I believe that concludes staff's presentation on the Heninger Park replacement windows. Both Jill and I are available for questions from participants regarding this presentation or regarding just general questions about windows or Heninger Park.
Thank you, Pedro. I think that Janelle Hardy, I think, may have a couple of questions for you. So maybe we can start with Janelle, and then additional participants, we can call upon them as well. Thank you.
Well, I kind of did go over my questions before the meeting started. I don't know if there's any of them that Pedro or Jill want to address now, or if they want me to repeat the questions, or if we can just maybe get them answered at another time when we're not having a meeting. I don't know what the best thing to do would be.
Well, let's defer to Pedro and Jill.
Yeah,
and let's see.
Pedro, what do you think? Should I save my questions for outside of the meeting?
No, we can certainly answer.
Certainly address them now.
Yeah,
Okay.
all
right.
I'm sure we remember.
So the first question had to do with if we see windows being changed out in the neighborhood in progress kind of situation, or even if we notice it after it's happened, because sometimes it happens like in the blink of an eye, like in a period of 24 hours. Who would we call to ask if they'd gone through a permit process at the counter? Would it be you, Pedro, or Jill? Would it be code enforcement? Or is this something that gets reported on the city app? And sometimes, it's very crucial, especially if it's in progress, that somebody can get out to the property fast and let the property owner know that maybe they don't want to take those original windows off the property yet. So that's my question.
Sure. I guess I'll start responding.
Okay.
It is a good question. If it is in progress and you're witnessing it, you certainly have a couple options. One, which is contacting code enforcement. I apologize, I don't have their phone number on me, but it is available on the city's website. And then you can also report any sort of violations, whether it's just related to window changeouts or what you may perceive as an unpermitted violation through the Santa Ana mobile app by taking a picture, and then it will be assigned to the appropriate department to handle. With regards to questions you may have on whether or not it has been a specific improvement has been permitted, you can certainly call the planning division at 714-647-5804. Or you could send an email to planning department at santa-ana.org. Those are mainly the things to respond for us to get to know whether or not something has been permitted, if you have questions, or to have a code enforcement officer visit the site to see what has occurred.
Jill, thank you. Jill, thanks so much. I just wanted to supplement the information that Jill shared. Yeah, definitely contacting code enforcement is really important. When you contact code enforcement, though, I think it's very important to indicate, as Jill shared, that the work is in progress so that there's a sense of urgency about them going out there. They actually assign cases differently to the extent that the work is in progress, because they understand that it's important that they get out there as soon as they possibly can. And so that's just sort of one bit of additional information that I would sort of share. It is possible to request code enforcement using the city's website, in addition to the app. And so there's a code enforcement complaint screen on the website that you can also request follow-up by code enforcement. And I believe their number is 714-667-2780 for code enforcement to call them. And so again, all the information that Jill provided is just wonderful. I just wanted to just add a little bit of extra there. And back to you, Janelle. Did you have an additional question, perhaps?
Great. Thank you, Scott. I think we have a question or two on the chat, or a question and a comment. Does anybody else see that?
Yes, this is Scott, and I do see the question. Carla has a question, and Carla, if you'd like, we can unmute you so that you can ask the question yourself if you'd like. So we're going to unmute you at this point. And Carla, can you hear us? Can we hear you?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Why don't you ask Jill and Pedro your question?
Okay. Thank you for putting the code enforcement phone number on the chat. And I think the question is maybe a two-part question. The question was if the requirements are only for the main house, or also for, sometimes houses have like a house in the back, or like there are duplex in the back. So my question is if the requirement is for the whole property or just like for the main house.
Thank you. I think I can answer that. This is Pedro. So generally the design guidelines apply to all of the structures within the Heninger Park guidelines. And again, if those structures are not necessarily located on Appendix A or themselves are not historic, then the citywide design guidelines do apply. And the reason for this is because we want to make sure that the buildings, not just the main house, but accessory structures, continue to contain the historic fabric throughout the whole neighborhood. So sometimes you'll have accessory structures that are located in the rear, but that are still visible from the street. So we want to make sure that the window patterns, window materials, and trims are all consistent with the original look of the main house and of the neighborhood.
Thank you, Pedro.
Excellent. We do have another. We have another question, Janelle. Another question came in from one of the Heninger Park residents, and their question for Pedro and Jill is, is it possible to remain anonymous if you're contacting code enforcement, and how do you go about doing that?
I'm not familiar. Jill, are you familiar with the app? I know you can remain anonymous on our hotline and our website, but I'm not familiar with the app.
I'm not too familiar with the app, but I believe it can be anonymous where you do not necessarily have to write your name in, because when you do take that picture, I do believe it identifies where you're taking that picture for them to pinpoint the location, in addition to providing additional information. But I believe just like if you were calling in or submitting a request for an inspection, that can to be anonymous.
And I can add to that. Just be really careful when you submit with the app, because right before you press the button that says submit, you have an option and it'll say, do you want to be anonymous or, not? And so that's when you need to make that choice way down at the bottom before you press submit. And even though you're anonymous, it will, the app will let you know if your complaint has been received at whatever email you're sending it from. But your name won't be tied to it necessarily. But you do have an anonymous option.
And this is Scott, and I just wanted to share also for residents of Heninger Park, to the extent that you have a really sensitive issue and it's really, really critically important to remain anonymous, you could always contact myself or Margarita or Alyssa from our staff, and the report to code enforcement can go in under our names.
Okay.
And there'll be no record, associated with you and your identity. The advantage of that is that you can contact us subsequently, 3 or 4 weeks later, whatever it may be, to sort of find out, whatever happened to that complaint. Did the inspector go out? What did the inspector find? What is the follow-up? And so we're able to check those records on our desktop computers, and we're able to provide you with an update as to the status. We find that many times that can be a source of frustration for people, that they submit a complaint but don't ever know what the resolution was. And so that's just sort of like another option, because obviously if you want to remain anonymous, we have no way of following up with you to let you know what the outcome was. And so that just contacting our office is another way to do that.
Thank you, Scott.
And back to you, Janelle.
All right. Thank you, Scott, for adding that. That's true. There are a lot of different ways to do things and to check your status. So were there any other questions? Do we have anybody else calling in, or did anybody else wish to ask a question on this topic?
I have another question.
Sure. Yes, Carla.
I also wanted to know, other than windows, like what are the other requirements, or the top, like the top 5 items? Because I there might be a lot.
So maybe Pedro or Jill could give a real fast answer to that, because they're the ones that would see things that are happening in the neighborhood.
Because I thought for sure doors would be on the top 5, that you can't just replace your door. I'm not sure.
Yes, they can be a historical character defining feature. Is that correct?
Carla, just so I can understand your question, are you asking about what sort of other elements of a house are usually replaced along with windows, such as doors and other materials?
Yeah, I think you're, yes, more like what are, one for sure thing is the slidings on the house. You can't have that material that was very popular. It has to be wood slides. And I was interested in regards to the door, if the door can be replaced to any door you want, or is there the specific just the same as windows?
Okay, we can answer that. Just to step back, just one step. A reminder is that if you're located within Heninger Park, if you live in Heninger Park and SD40 within those boundaries we showed in the PowerPoint earlier, any sort of changes, even if they're minor, that include windows, doors, your siding, your roof, all that has to go through the neighborhood review application process. And that's just to ensure that the changes are like for like. So to go to your question specifically, if you are a historic home, meaning that you are on our city's list, or if your home is identified on Appendix A, then the changeouts of a door or a sliding patio door has to be like for like. If it was originally a wood door or it was originally a metal sliding patio door, then the replacement is generally like for like. If your home is not located on Appendix A and it's not historic or on our city historic list, we abide by the city design guidelines. Now, the city design guidelines are a little more flexible. We still strive for consistency in materials and types, but we understand that sometimes it's a little harder to get original types of doors. And so the city design guidelines allow for some flexibility in materials. As long as the overall look is consistent and the overall operations of a door are consistent. For example, if you had a French door and you wanted to replace it with some sort of larger accordion door that kind of rolls out, that might not be consistent with the original style of the house. So we do have cases where we kind of reach out to both Janelle to provide some photos sometimes, or we review them on a case-by-case basis to see if they're appropriate. But generally, they have to be pretty consistent with the style of the house and materials.
Hi, this is Margarita. I just wanted to let you know that we confirmed with Mario from the Spanish line, and he's said that his questions have been answered so far with the material, Pedro, that you and Jill have presented. So thank you.
Perfect.
So that pretty much, did that answer your questions, Carla? Do you have any other questions? Because this is like news to a lot of people that don't really know about this aspect of our neighborhood. And I just think it's really important to get the word out, so people can learn what this neighborhood is all about, and, and go from there, and know that they can talk to the planners, or even Margarita and Scott before they want to do changes, and see, how to go about it. So,
okay, that's excellent. If there aren't any other questions for Jill and Pedro,
raise their hand. Andrew. I'm not quite sure if they're just calling in.
Oh, I don't know. Let's see.
I don't see the option.
Raise their hand. I don't see.
no, Jill, I don't see any other questions, actually.
So I do have those 2 more questions if we have time. Otherwise, I can always take it offline.
Hey,
Hello?
I think.
Oh, I think, is it Andre? Do you have a question?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. We can recognize Andre to ask a question?
Yes. I agree with you now. Windows are so important. All right. And it goes by in a flash. Is there anyone still on the code enforcement that can come out on a weekend? In other words, if you call them on a Saturday morning, is it just, until Monday or whatever, or are people that are on the weekends? Because that's when a lot of this happens. Okay, that's my main question. My second question is, how the heck did the house get built on McFadden, abutting the 3-story in Victoria? And there's like less than a foot between the 2 homes.
Where was this? Is this in Heninger Park?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been here 20 years. I hope I know this part. Yeah. Yeah. You go down Broadway after school, and the church supposed you make a right. Okay, and then you go back to the house. Right in back of that house is a big house. I do not mean an addition. I mean it looks like a 3 or 4-story house. Huh? And it's totally completed.
Oh,
Yeah,
on McFadden?
Yeah.
McFadden? I think maybe Pedro might be familiar with that property. I don't know if off the top of his head he can give us a little history of it, but it did go through a review of the neighborhood and planning department, and
Well,
sometimes you don't have to match the actual architecture of the main house kind of thing in that situation. Are you familiar with that, Pedro?
Yes, I am. Did we want to maybe just address this first question? Anyone else has a response to that? I'm not aware of code enforcement working on the weekends.
yes, thank you.
So Andre, hey, hi, this
Yeah.
is Scott Kuttner, and thank
Hi.
you so much for participating tonight. And so typically we do not have code enforcement officers working on weekends at this point in time. But if there is a necessity for a code enforcement officer to work on a weekend, we will figure out a way to get that response. And so, but as a standard practice at this time, Pedro is correct. We don't have code enforcement staffing on weekends.
Right. And you know, said, I appreciate your response, Scott, but it doesn't happen. It can start this Saturday morning, you know, and you're trying to finish up Sunday. I mean, I've seen it happen here a lot. But,
Right.
You know, I've been here a long time. And
So
you see it.
Yes, in those cases, Andre, you know, we'll be out there as soon as we can. That would be on Monday. In a case like that.
Yeah, here's the home. It was there.
And then Pedro, I think that I think she has additional questions. Andre may have an additional question for you.
Well, no, basically, thank you, Scott. You answered both of mine. It was code enforcement and the windows. But the windows, to me, are like 1,000% important. You can never, what happens, I've seen it, they take out the old ones and they break them up and put them in the trash. So, you know, they're gone. You can't get them back that way. You know, but I think possibly if you told people some of the advantages like the Mills Act or something, they might be less prone to put in the plastic. You know, but we've had a company in the past 3 days coming by here. I know they've been to my house 4 times. Yesterday they were ready to take out their stuff to replace my windows. I'm like, no, you know. And I mean, that's how aggressive they are. Yeah, I had to write a whole, basically almost a small letter to say no. And I know a lot of people wouldn't go that far, you know. And that can be an issue because the way they spoke on it was like we had to do it. And I knew we didn't have to, but I don't think a lot of people would know the answer to that one.
And that's part of why I thought this was an important topic, is I'm seeing it in some of our neighborhoods that now that they can, you know, sort of apply or work to become a historic district, they're changing out their windows right and left, and they have no clue that this might not be a good idea.
Right, yeah, property value declines, etc. But, you know, again, like with the Mills Act, and I've been on it a long time, it saves you more money, I think, than your gas change out, or not change out, but your gas and the darn windows would cost. I mean, yeah, because there is material, I've seen it, where you can apply it to replace like a piece of, with a window sill or something. It does take some work, but it's there. But those are my 3 questions. Thank you all.
Thank you, Andre.
Mm-hmm.
I have another question, if I may.
Yes, Carla?
Okay, thank you. I think it's going to be an easy one. I'm just confused. I know that, so our house is in Heninger Park, so that means it's part of the historic area. But does that mean that our house is also a historic house? Because I think you also have to register for that as well. Is that right?
Peter, can you answer Carla's question for her, or maybe Jill?
Sure.
How you go about deciding whether or not your house is important or historic, or how it contributes?
Sure. Carla, without knowing your address, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but we did provide a link for the architectural design guidelines for Heninger Park. Appendix A, which is located all the way in the back, provides a list of houses that are on the historic register or that are considered eligible to be on the historic register. If your house is in Appendix A, chances are that you could be eligible or you are historic. And also another tool for you to look at is, Jill presented that slide that we have a comprehensive list of all of our historic properties. If your home is on the historic list, then you are a historic property on the city of Santa Ana. If you're not, if your property is not historic on a register, then we can certainly walk you through what the process is to list your home. Generally, the city staff does look at the architectural style. If it's well preserved, we look at the history of who might have lived there. If anyone of significance lived there, those are all generally kind of good things and would kind of contribute to making your house eligible for listing. So as was mentioned earlier, if your home is on the list, you're eligible for a Mills Act, which is a property tax saving agreement that helps you then put some of that tax savings back into your home. So it's a good tool and it's an incentive to list your home on the register. So if you're not already on the register, we'd be happy to talk about it offline, and we do have our contact information on this last slide. So I can walk you through all the steps that are necessary to list your home on the register if it qualifies.
Okay, thank you.
We will have this presentation available for the neighborhood, as well as we'll post it online as soon as we can, with all the links able to be linked, and our information is on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Jill. Maybe we might want to move on. I did have a couple more questions though, but I don't know if we have time for that. What do you think, Scott? Margarita?
I think that it's 7:20, and so we should probably be respectful of people's time and move on and have Melanie McCann kind of make her presentation. That'd be great.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Thank you, Pedro. That was a wonderful presentation. That was great. So I've been waiting for all these millions of years. And you are too. So we'll maybe go to the next, yes, we will be going to the next agenda item, talking about the city's general plan update proposal. And Melanie McCann will be doing that presentation. Are you there, Melanie? I see your screen, Melanie. Can you hear me?
Hey, Melanie, this is Scott. I just want to let you know that we can see you sharing your screen, but we're not able to hear you to the extent that you need to adjust your audio. This would be a good time to. Very good. Very good, Melanie.
Perfect.
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
I'm gonna mute my mic now. Thank you.
Well done. All right. So thank you for the introduction. So everyone can see the picture with the city's beautiful skyline there.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, thank you. So my name is Melanie McCann. I also work with Jill and Pedro in the planning department, and I'm on the team that's helping with the general plan update. So there's a couple of things that I was asked to touch on, one in particular about the South Main portion of the general plan update. So we will touch on that today or tonight. So for those that are maybe new to the discussion, this has been going on for a number of years now. Since about 2015, 2016, we started our public outreach. And the general plan is a document that's required by the state, and it's to help cities organize and set the policies for not only physical development, but their quality of life and sustainability for the future. So in our case, the general plan is shooting for 2045. The subjects you see below are all the different topics that are covered in the element in the general plan, including the historic element, which is new, and the land use element is what we'll touch on tonight a little bit more. Before we go into the land use part, I just wanted to acknowledge that there's law that also requires us to look more deeply at our communities of disadvantage. And the areas that are in this fuchsia pink are the areas in our city that, based on several different criteria, these being some examples: air quality, diesel emissions, linguistic isolation, poverty, groundwater contamination, various characteristics are studied by census tract. And as you can see, First Street is right here, and you can see Main Street is right here. So a portion of Heninger Park is considered an environmental justice community that we've got extra policies and programs to help improve some of those situations in those communities in particular. So this colorful visual shows the boundaries of Heninger Park, pink, and then this dark line is the boundary of the South Main focus area. There's 5 focus areas that are being looked at for additional growth and development. For the South Main Street area, the concept was to encourage redevelopment, but mostly improvements on the property along Main Street, to reinforce an active and dynamic street. And as you know, there's also improvements from another project for beautification and improvements to Main Street. And also to allow for a little bit more intensity along the corridor, and also to create an environment that supports the use of bus transit and pedestrian and very active street. So this is our general plan website, and this particular page goes through the different elements. These are all draft elements with policies and programs in them. And I wanted to make note that there's also maps that show the focus areas. So the South Main focus area, if you go to our website and click on that, and this is the website here, you just search for Santa Ana General Plan, you'll find your way. But the next slide that I was going to share is for, one moment please, is the sample of those 2 maps. So if you click on the South Main, it will show you what the existing, what we call land use plan is. So all these different colors represent different types of land uses. So right now, and again, this is Heninger Park to the west, on the west side of Main Street. So right now, the corridor is designated for just general commercial. And then the yellow is single family residential. So as you can see on the right, this is the proposed land use plan. The areas that are hatched are the areas that are proposed for some type of change. One thing I want to reinforce is this yellow area, that there's no proposed change to the residential behind Main Street. It's just along Main Street. And then this area here, this purple color, is what we call urban neighborhood, that allows for not just commercial, but residential opportunities, so a mixed use. Again, mixed use is one of those tools that long-term will hopefully get more people out of their cars, walking to where they need to go. In this case, you're just south of the downtown, so opportunities sort of grow the downtown just a little bit, and then allow that to feed into the rejuvenated, charming South Main corridor. So again, it's the areas that hatched are proposed for change. I'll draw your attention down here. This is actually just a minor cleanup. This is to reflect the existing uses, the school that is here, and then just expand this area a little bit to allow the whole block to be mixed use versus cutting it in half like it was in the prior plan. So again, to reinforce, the purple area is what we call urban neighborhood. It's intended to be about 20 dwelling units per acre, and that's in comparison to single family, which is 7. Single family, again, these yellow areas, is 2 stories maximum. And the urban neighborhood in this location would allow for a maximum of 3 stories. So those are the uses that are most relevant to the Heninger neighborhood. But I'll also mention that at the south part of the South Main corridor, it's proposed that the industrial down here be transitioned to what we're calling industrial flex. It would allow for that a little more height, up to 3 stories, but it's intended to be sort of office industrial and clean manufacturing. So it's to transition to a cleaner, more creative opportunity space. So I'll go back for a second. So that's an overview of the land use information related to South Main that I believe, Janelle, you were most interested in. And I'd be happy to respond to any questions. Oh, one thing I might add, Janelle had mentioned earlier, that the zoning, so there's 2 layers for what you can do with your property. The general plan is the broader definition of what you can do, number of stories, the density, and then we have zoning underneath that. There is zoning in place for Heninger Park SD 40, as well as South Main commercial. So ultimately, as a follow-up to the general plan, the commercial South Main zoning that's right now in the purple area here would need to be adjusted to allow for residential and create design standards that would be complementary to the historic nature and the urban form, if you will, of South Main now, where the buildings are closer to the street, et cetera. And then SD 40, which in theory right now allows multifamily and allows some commercial. We would want to be working to update SD 40, which I think has been, I'm sure Pedro would agree as well, and Janelle, has needed to be updated for quite some time, so that both of those zones would need to be refreshed and made appropriate. So I think I'll stop there and respond to any questions.
Are there any questions?
Janelle,
I think I've overspoke. I'll leave this space for someone else.
Oh, let's check with our colleague Margarita Macedonio to see if there are any questions on the Spanish language line.
Hi, this is Margarita. We have one comment. Un momento, Mario, lo voy a poner en speaker. Okay, 1 second. We have Mario on the call still. So I'm going to, okay, Mario, ¿quiere hablar?
No, nomás decir que pues, ahora que arreglaron la calle aquí donde yo vivo, la Garden Street, quedó muy bonito. Quedó muy bonito, la arreglaron toda completa.
Okay.
Y
So,
se mira muy diferente.
okay, he just says he appreciates the street improvements that were done on Garnsey, and that it just like gives it a whole different look. That's all he wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario.
Thank you.
Did we want to This is Scott. Did we want to go to Carla? Janelle, did Carla have a question also?
I don't know. Carla, did you have a question pertaining to the general plan presentation?
Yes, but I'll step back so others can
No,
talk.
that's okay. Go ahead.
So my question is, I mean, I have several concerns, especially because Heninger is on the affected area that has, you know, all those things you mentioned, like air pollutants, water pollutants, earth pollutants.
I think ground too. I think ground up there was like a lot of automotive kind of uses over the years. Yeah, bad. And the gas station, I think, is like air pollution too.
And I've been working with the census, and I've been covering our area. So I know that it's also rent burden, overcrowding is also an issue, and so on and so forth. I wanted to know what the plan was from the city to help out. And that was my first concern. The second concern is me and my husband are looking at the map and we don't understand it. I'm not sure if we're understanding correctly of the redevelopment. My concern is if my neighbors are going to be displaced, or is the city using eminent domain to kick everyone out to do the redevelopment? Or I'm not understanding.
At Pine and Walnut?
Let me, if I may, would it be all right to jump in on the question of the redevelopment thing? So sometimes that word is a difficult word because it associates with the old days of, as you mentioned, eminent domain. The map you see on the screen is a map of opportunity. The city does not have any plans to buy land, to construct anything, not at all. So what this does is identifies what if a property owner or a development interest could come in and approach the city. And for instance, in the purple areas, which is typically not where there's, along Main Street, there's not too many residential uses.
Uh-oh.
Whoops.
It's a very important part here. I can't hear Melanie.
Uh-oh, not again. Okay.
Melanie,
can you hear me now?
Melanie, this is Scott.
Can you hear me now?
Melanie, this is Scott, and I believe we can hear you. I can hear you clearly. There was no interruption at all. So
maybe it was me.
We'll just check.
Okay.
We'll sort of keep a tab on it, Melanie. But I think your audio is okay.
All right. Maybe somebody else's system just went on the blitz as well. So I just was going to mention that it's not about taking anyone's home. And again, the yellow areas where there's established residential, we're not changing anything there. It's just creating an opportunity where now that's only allowed commercial uses in the purple area. They'll have the opportunity to still do commercial, ground floor, et cetera, but to also have residential uses. So that's a good thing to allow more housing opportunities. But again, it's no more than 3 stories on Main Street. And then either side it stays the same. Those yellow areas would essentially stay the same. Does that help clarify your question?
Well, I know you mentioned that it's not to take anyone out, but though there are people already occupying the space that you or the city is planning on utilizing. So my concern is my neighbors, because those people that live there or that have a business there, they've been here for a very long time, and they also live here. Maybe not at their business establishment that they're renting or that they own, but I'm concerned of what will happen to them if the development or the land use focus area is approved.
And that's
I'm sorry.
I was just.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You first. Go ahead.
I was just appreciating your time and your effort on explaining this.
Oh, certainly. So the city is very mindful that any change, new development has an impact of some sort. And we are always looking for the opportunity for existing businesses that for some reason are impacted by positive change, let's call it positive change, more investment in the area, that we work, and this is what we have to work with our economic development folks as well, and our housing folks, is to allow opportunity for those, say it's a business, once an area is improved, to allow them first opportunity to go back into that area and stay. And the same thing with folks that live in the area that might be somehow impacted or displaced by change, that we have policies that give them the first opportunity to be a part of, say, that new housing, hopefully affordable housing. So it won't be easy, but that's what we are very mindful of that potential impact and creating programs to support our residents and our businesses that are here. Hope that helps a little. And was there more to your question that you'd like me to respond to?
Was there anything else, Carla?
I'm sorry, I'm still trying to digest everything that she said, because I know she mentioned that there's an opportunity for them to come back, and let's call it a positive or opportunity when it does in fact have a negative displacement effect to my neighbors. And I totally forgot what I had already asked, so I'm just going to take some time to digest.
So, Carla, are you looking at properties talking about properties that are residential on South Main, or behind the properties on South Main, or
I really don't understand the map, so I know for sure, like the Main Street, the businesses, they also have living space.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, some do. Some do, yes.
Yes, a lot. That's
so because the general plan allows for urban neighborhood, it doesn't mean that everything will change overnight. But Carla, I would I'll put my phone number, our phone number up on the screen, but you're more than welcome to call me and I can walk through it further as well. Again, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Melanie, for your patience. I've already been through the trauma that we lived through Bristol Street when lots of my friends and family was displaced. So I am just, I guess I'm a bit shocked, but I do appreciate it. Yeah, and I'll definitely follow up with you, and maybe you can help me understand, and then I can help others, explain it to others.
Absolutely, that would be a great opportunity. So let's do connect on that and look at, again, we're looking for ways to temper any kind of displacement that might come about with change, because it's a delicate balance that improvements will help the economy of the area, will provide jobs, will provide housing. So there's all these positives, but then there's also the downside, which could be some aspect of displacement. So would really like to talk to you some more about that.
And Melanie, this is Scott, and I just wanted to just make a brief comment on Carla's observation regarding Bristol Street. Carla, this general plan item is an entirely different public policy discussion than Bristol Street. Bristol Street involved the widening of the street and the use of eminent domain to acquire real estate. And so you referenced the traumatic effects on families that you know, whose homes I'm assuming were sort of fronting on Bristol or near Bristol Street, and that were acquired in order to facilitate the widening of the street. And so this general plan is not that type of a policy at all. It doesn't involve eminent domain. It doesn't involve the acquisition of property by the city of Santa Ana at all. And I want to pass it back to Melanie just so that she can kind of reiterate how this policy sort of over time is sort of implemented.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, as Scott was touching on, the general plan is a broad, I'll call it a land use opportunity layer, and the city is not going in to do any acquisition. It's just trying to look for the future, for how we can plan for the residents that we need housing for, that we can improve ways to stimulate improvements on Main Street and support the businesses. It's really intended to activate this area. And again, it's on a corridor that's got a healthy transit transportation route. It's an opportunity. Unless the property owner wants to make that change will not happen. It's entirely in the private sector.
There's a sentence right there. Thank you, Melanie. And
okay.
Carla, let me help you look at this map. If you start at the top, you see all those little purple boxes up there at the very top at First Street. That's where Original Mike's is. The parking lot of Original Mike's, which he's like had something in the works that's residential, high rise, high density for a while. And then it's where those sort of weird copper dome buildings are that are like commercial strip kind of situation, I believe. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep, it's commercial,
okay.
Right?
So then you come down Main Street from that First Street where all those purple boxes are. You come down to those first blue rectangle and square, and that's Franklin Elementary. So that's it. That's Heninger Park right there. So it kind of looks like they might take over the city parking lot, and somebody might want to build a high rise on that skinny little thing, but I don't see how because the market's right there.
And again, and Janelle, the term you're using, high rise, it's 3 stories.
But that's higher than anything there, Melanie. And the problem is it's in people's backyards, quite literally. And if you live on South Sycamore, that's in your backyard. That's the problem.
And also remember that Northgate also on 4th Street was only just a supermarket on 4th Street. And then we all know what happened to 4th Street, and now they're trying to also create housing on top of, make this like housing with, I don't know what they're doing, but I guess I could also assume that at some point they would have that option to also do it here in Heninger.
Yeah, that's where I want to try and clarify so we understand. The purple area here, as it's stated here, is based on what's being proposed, would allow a maximum of 3 stories. And while that might seem large, just put in perspective that the old historic homes that you have now are 2 stories. So, just for perspective. And that anyone in the yellow area here has the right today, minus historic considerations, to add another story to their house. So, but again, the idea is that when this goes to council, it's being asked that this purple area, and again, you're saying Original Mike's is right here.
Yes.
That it can be a maximum of 3 stories.
United Auto Building listed on the historic register. So that's a really big concern.
Right. And again, I guess to allay your concerns, historic properties are protected. So that's good. So Original Mike's is on the historic register and would be protected.
And also, Melanie, here at Heninger Park, I don't know how it happened, but we already have apartment buildings and duplexes.
Right.
So we have
that is part of
parking too.
That's part of the history of Heninger Park. That's how Heninger Park became a SD. because they were tearing down our old homes and building apartment buildings. And the neighbors got together and worked with the city and said, we got to fix this. We don't want any more apartment buildings. And that's part of the history of Heninger Park.
And that's the disconnect with your zoning that right now allows multifamily and 4 stories in part of this area. Right now it does. But because, and this is confusing, but because the general plan is yellow, it capped it and said, like you said, Janelle, the city council reduced the general plan and said, regardless of the zoning, for the most part, single family is what this area is designated. So it basically froze this area.
And Carla,
no more.
And Carla, thank you so much for your questions. And you and Melanie will be able to talk at much greater length and Melanie will be able to provide much more specific information. You'll be able to ask lots more questions as well. We want you to understand what's being proposed as well as possible so that you're able to participate, as this policy is considered by the Planning Commission or the City Council. We're very, very interested in you being able to weigh in and express yourself for sure. And so our colleague Melanie has offered to work with you directly. I encourage you to take her up on that so that you're able to get all of your questions answered as to the greatest degree possible. Janelle, I wanted to check and see if we have any other questions. I saw that Andre Wager has her microphone unmuted. Andre, did you have a question? Did you have a question, Andre?
Yeah, I still have a question. Going back to the map, okay, where you see where, it butts to Broadway, which is, very close to me. I would not appreciate, a 3-story building, coming that close. I mean, I remember when, Mike's was supposed to be, the restaurant plus townhouse. People can submit anything, and what I've seen is variance between what they said it was and what it turned out to be, basically. It's, and that's where I want to know, is there like a watchdog committee or something? Because, we have like these little, what do you want to call them, homemade DIY little, auto stores around here, and repair shops. And they sort of kind of cover them up, but they're there, And so what I also want to know is, like, with something like that, I can still call code enforcement, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that's correct. If somebody's operating a business out of a house, yes, that's something that code enforcement can respond to see whether it's approved and that sort of thing. Yes, for sure.
Right. And that's about the end of my question. And I have to say good night to people. I got a couple things to do here.
Okay. Thank you, Andre. It's great to catch up with you. Thank you so much for participating.
No
I think
problem.
we're near the conclusion of Melanie's presentation, I believe. Is that correct, Melanie? Or
good night.
Yes, I was just good night. Good night, Andre.
Good night.
I was just I was just going to touch on what Janelle started the conversation, and that was that the comments for the EIR related to the general plan has been extended until October 6th. And then the next opportunity for a public hearing is actually in October, council November. So those are the dates that the project is, the critical dates moving forward. But I would encourage anyone to contact me directly or email us with any thoughts, concerns, be it height, be it proximity, be it ideas for mitigating gentrification or displacement. All of those things are important, and we're trying to incorporate them into the city's plan. So thanks.
Melanie, could you go, this is Janelle, could you go back to the map another time, one more time, please?
Sure.
Is that possible? Okay, The purple, the urban neighborhood, low density urban neighborhoods with mix of single, multifamily housing, mixed use residential with ground floor retail services, restaurants, cultural uses, and public and private open spaces. Basically, we already have that there, except for maybe, you know, open spaces. And that's like, we don't have open space anywhere. That's like for eating outside probably. But we already have all that there. So I don't know why we need to like, I mean, it hasn't, why is this new name urban neighborhood? I mean, sure, it's not what we all wish for, you know, but a new building isn't going to necessarily make it what we all wish for either. Because we already have residential there. We already have mixed use. We already have housing there. We already have retail on the ground floor there. So how is the general plan, what's their vision that's going to make it all that much better or different?
Well, it allows the opportunity, is what I'll say. So the residential that you have there now are not, it's not actually, whoops, sorry, going the wrong way. Go back. This is the zoning you were asking about. Goodness.
Yes, that's it, Melanie. You're on the zoning map, right? You were on the zoning map.
Oh.
There it is. It's the
There it
zoning
is.
map right there.
Well, no, I wasn't actually, well, I wasn't trying to go to the zoning map, but
Okay. That's okay.
that's okay. We can land here. So, so my point was that the general plan allows for mixed use. Right now, technically, mixed use is not allowed. So,
Okay,
and
so I
just,
guess I need to know the definition of mixed use. Is it just a combination of residential retail in one building?
it can be what we call vertical, which is commercial on the first level, residential on the upper level.
We already have
in
that. Have you been on South Main? In Heninger
Janelle,
Park?
I guess if you and some of the residents were to drive down Main Street and
Yeah.
you were to imagine it, how you would love it to be, where it would have a couple new little restaurants, where it would have a new facade remodel, where it would have a little bit more investment.
Yes.
That's what the new general plan and the zoning encourages, that kind of reinvestment and improvement.
But would
And
it
again,
maintain the historic character of the neighborhood that it's adjacent to?
Well, as you know, Main Street has kind of a historic feel to it, and the
Yes.
intention is to build on that.
Okay.
So just like the downtown, it's a historic area. That doesn't mean everything will look exactly like an old building, but it should fit in and complement it.
Because
So,
we
and
do
the
have craftsman, two-story lovely craftsman homes right in Heninger Park area on South Main. That's the whole thing. And they do have retail down below. So that's my point.
But Janelle, the concept of existing non-conforming, it's like the multifamily that are in Heninger Park. They're not allowed anymore by our general plan. So we're looking at it and trying to make our general plan communicate what we really want. So like some of those areas that have mixed use that you think are a really good asset, this general plan affirms that that's good.
Okay, I got it. I know I'm kind of dense. I got it. I see that.
It is confusing. It is confusing.
It's just that, we know it's already there. So, it's like, I don't want to just have somebody have an excuse to like, oh, it's not already there. So we got to like go up 3 stories and make something that's like, further down the road.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then I have one more question, Melanie. Bear with me.
Okay.
All right. So you said you're talking about the SD40 update. So does that mean the general plan will be adopted before the SD40 update? Because
Yes,
that's going to take
definitely.
time. All right. So
Right,
what
so-
time frame do you think the SD40 update's going to be starting? Or is it started already? Or
We're
does that fit
actually
in the puzzle?
We're actually in the general plan definitely will go first.
Okay.
And we're actually in the process of trying to get some funding from the state
Okay.
to fund the update of the zoning for these new general plan designations. So I can't really give you a time frame, but I would have to, if I had to guess, I would guess it would be in the year following the general plan adoption.
Okay.
Because as you
And
said,
then the
it will
neighborhood
take time.
The neighborhood will be involved with that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All
Yeah,
right.
particularly
Just
Heninger Park,
posted.
it's a historic zoning district.
And I have the, you know, I have all the paperwork and all the zoning from the original 1986. I have all that SD, and I have everything. Of course, you do too, I'm sure, for the 2006. So I can see how it's changed and how it got messed up and crooked and backwards and.
Right, exactly. So
Got
it would be a good thing to clean that up.
All righty, I agree.
And
So thank
we're
you
looking
so
forward
much.
Sure. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you. All right, now what? I think we've accomplished everything on our agenda. And maybe I can make a couple announcements or reminders if I can find my notes. Let me see. So we did talk about the general plan comments deadline being now October 6th. So we do have a little more time to make any comments about the general plan that we wish, either support or some additions to what we think we would like to see or anything like that. I'm sure people would want to read about that have been working hard on it.
Thanks.
Right.
Right. Thanks, Janelle.
You're welcome. Thank you. And then I just got the CARES flyer on my front door today. The Santa Ana CARES. And I thought they'd forgotten Heninger Park, but they're going to be here in Heninger Park tomorrow on West Cubbon, between Sycamore and Broadway, between the hours of 12:30 and 2:30 p.m. And so I'm guessing it's going to be around Franklin School area. So I would say look for the CARES rollout there in Heninger Park at the Franklin Elementary School. For anybody that's interested in that, which we all are. And I think that's about it. So thank you, Melanie. Pedro.
Janelle?
Yes, Jill, Margarita, Scott, what?
Can you share the time that the Santa Ana CARES mobile will be in the area?
Yes, between 12:30 and 2:30. So it's a short time frame. Did you hear me on that? Yes? No?
And did you say it's
Thank you,
Pine
Janelle.
Street?
That helps.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I can announce our next meeting too. October 6th? No, that's the comments. Our next meeting is November 18th.
El 18 de noviembre.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Janelle.
Thank you,
So
Scott.
as we, have we covered all the items that you wanted to tonight? We're good.
Yes, I think so. Thank
Margarita
you so
says
much.
that we're good.
Okay.
Melanie, we've covered all of your items as well. Okay, very good.
All right, so we can adjourn the meeting.
Yes, I think we can
Thank
adjourn
you,
the meeting.
everyone.
I just want to
Even though-
remind everybody that there will be a recording of the meeting available for people to refer to, and through the Heninger Park Neighborhood, we'll be sending that information out to your email contacts so that people who weren't able to participate tonight will be able to view the meeting. And that's wonderful.
That's very nice. That's good.
Yes.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you, everyone. And with that, we're going to sign off. Thank you and good night.
All right, good night.
Good night, everyone.
Night.